Shall we begin?
All right.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
This is going to be quite a ride.
And hello everybody and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. This is of course the podcast where we talk about movies. We talk about movie news. We talk about movie trailers. Talk about the movies that are coming out in theaters this weekend for all your viewing pleasures and everything far and in between, of course, that is related to movies. Because, like I mentioned, it's called the Movie Pit, and this is a movie. This is a show about movies. So, hello, welcome back to the podcast. It's the second week in a row. I don't want to keep doing the count, but I think that's what we're gonna have to do, especially now that the holidays are coming up. But yeah, hello, welcome back to the podcast. So we're gonna just jump right into it. I don't have too much to talk about here in this little opening spiel, so we're just going to jump right into it. Last week the podcast went up a little later than I intended, so we are going to talk about some movie news items that came out as the podcast was processing out for you guys. So technically, yes, some of these movie news items did come out after the podcast came out, but they were also coming out as the podcast was coming out. So let's just jump into those real quick. So the first one, some of these are pretty quick. I don't have too much to say about them, and some of them are pretty much straightforward. Like this one, Ant-Man 3 is officially a go. We kind of knew that there was going to be another Ant-Man 3, but since it was announced, there hasn't really been any news toward it, but now that changed last week. Director Peyton Reed, who directed the first two Ant-Man movies, the last two Ant-Man movies basically, is set to return. There's no official cast or plot details just yet, but we can assume that Paul Rudd, of course, will return as Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, and that Evangeline Lilly will return as the Wasp as well. It sounds from the reports that they could start filming at the end of next year or early 2021. So it's going to be a while before we get Ant-Man 3, but it is officially in the works. Peyton Reed is coming back, so there's that. This other movie news item, again, pretty straightforward. The highly praised Oscar-winning film, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is getting a much-deserved sequel. It was kind of already assumed it was getting a sequel, and I think it was announced. I can't remember if it was officially announced or not, but Sony Pictures pretty much clarified there is going to be another one because they announced that a release date for it, and it is going to be coming out on April 8th, 2022. So it is quite a wait, but the fact that we know there is another Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie coming is really, really cool. There's no word yet on who's going to be directing or writing or anything like that, but we can assume that potentially everyone from the last film will be coming back for this one. There was already some news that the Japanese Spider-Man was going to be in the movie, so there's that. If you don't know anything about the Japanese Spider-Man, I highly recommend you go check it out and go look it up because it's something. I'll put it that way. It's something. And finally, the last movie news item that came out after the podcast went up last week was that Dwayne Johnson is adding another film to his ever-growing busy schedule, as he is set to play MMA fighter and former UFC champion Mark Kerr. Johnson will also produce the film through his $7 Productions banner. There's no studio attached just yet, but considering it is Dwayne Johnson and in his production company, and a very, very good story of Mark Kerr, I can only imagine that there's going to be some studio that's going to nab this up pretty much right away. Kerr himself, if you're not familiar with the MMA game, if you're not familiar with the UFC at all, Mark Kerr went by a lot of nicknames. He went by the Smashing Machine, the Titan, and the Specimen. He was a two-time UFC heavyweight champion and was widely regarded as one of, if not the best fighter in the world during his MMA career. His life was a subject of a 2002 documentary called The Smashing Machine, if you want to go check that out. But his life story has never been reflected in a scripted form before. The documentary, I've only seen parts of the documentary, but the parts that I've seen are very, very powerful. And if you're wondering why they would make a movie about this guy who, even if you know very little about the UFC, you probably think of names, the current names, obviously, you can think of like Conor McGregor and John Jones and stuff like that, but if you go a little bit way back, you probably think of like Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, but Mark Kerr was one of those guys that the old days of the UFC was one of the top names and one of the most feared men to ever walk into that octagon. So this is pretty cool. So Johnson, it looks like Johnson's going to play Kerr himself, and it actually looks like the two have actually talked about the movie, and Kerr seems pretty okay with the movie happening. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting. Dwayne Johnson has played real life people before, never to this magnitude, so we'll see how that works out. Alright, so those are the movie news items that came out after the podcast came out last week. Let's move on to this week's movie news items, and we're going to start off, of course, with some movie trailers.
Coming soon to theaters.
So the first trailer we're going to talk about is the teaser trailer for Pixar's Soul. Written and directed by Pete Docter, who has written and directed Pixar's other big films like Monsters, Inc., Up, and Inside Out. So you can probably already tell where he's going to go with this one. It follows Joe Gardner, a middle school band teacher and jazz aficionado who gets a big break to play at a high-class jazz club. However, Joe, from the teaser, and apparently from what the movie will actually be about, may have apparently died. It looks like the movie is called Soul, for one thing, before he can get there, and finds himself in a mysterious place called U Seminar. Apparently the core of the story is that Joe's soul will get an opportunity to commune with a multitude of other souls that are awaiting a chance at consciousness. This will also be Doctor's potentially last film for a while, as he is now going to be the head of Pixar after Joe Lasseter was outed because, he was being a little too touchy with some people. The film has been also has an added bonus because it will be scored by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is mind-blowing to me that a Pixar movie is going to be scored by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And if you need a frame of reference for whatever reason, if you've been living under a rock or just you don't know people's names, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are responsible for the score and soundtrack for the Social Network, for the American remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Recently, they're doing the score for the Watchmen series, which is pretty great. So their names, and of course they've done other stuff as well, but those are kind of the big ones that I think everyone will know them for. The voice cast will include Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Questlove, and Daveed Diggs. Soul will open on June 19th, 2020.
What would you want to be known for on Earth? We only have a short time on this planet. You want to become the person that you were born to be? Don't waste your time on all the junk of life. What am I doing? Spend your precious hours doing what will bring out the real you. The brilliant, passionate you that's ready to contribute something meaningful into this world. I got the gig. I really need a haircut today, man. Can you fit me in? Whoa, sorry. What the? Hello? So what do you want to be remembered for?
Probably for doing this funny cowboy dance.
Great.
We don't get too much from it is a teaser trailer after all, so it's not going to give you a lot. But we don't get too much from the teaser in itself. We see it looks like it's gonna somewhat be set in New York. That's kind of the vibe we got. And it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how Pixar and Docter go around this. Apparently Docter and the writers of the movie, the other writers of the movie, talk to a lot of different people about their version of the afterlife and their religious views of the afterlife. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see kind of how that works out. And it's a movie called Soul, so it is going to be about someone's soul, and I'm sure people are already up in arms about it. I haven't read a lot of the reaction to the trailer or to the teaser just yet, but I can only imagine how that's going over right now. But I mean, it's Pixar. Everyone, there's always those jokes that Pixar is running out of ideas. They made a movie about people's emotions, and look what happened. Everyone loved Inside Out. They made, sequels to Toy Story. They made a sequel to Monsters, Inc., which was actually a prequel. Pixar always has this way of releasing a movie and people always doubting them, and then it comes out, and everyone pretty much likes it or falls in love with it. So I don't see Soul being any different. Teaser wise, it was fine. It doesn't give you too much. Animation should be interesting because you see this, we've seen how Pixar, animates the real world and stuff like that. And we get a lot of that in the teaser, and then all of a sudden it's just this little like flame almost. That's the best way I can describe it. If you haven't watched the trailer yet, it's kind of like this little flame or glow, kind of like ghost flame. That doesn't make any sense, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. It's this little flame, and then they're interested in this like very dark area. So I don't know. Obviously there are probably going to be a lot more bright colors. It is a teaser trailer, so they're not going to give too much away, but definitely on the intriguing side for Soul. So like I mentioned, Soul opens on June 19th, 2020, next year, so we can expect a little bit more from that. Let's move on to the next trailer, which is the new trailer for Bad Boys for Life.
You done lost your damn mind.
Even the Batmobile don't hold the road like this, bitch.
Tight pants and fast cars don't make you Batman, Mike.
Boss. Get me the fuck out of this car. Mike, we got more time behind us than in front.
Man, please. I'm gonna be running down criminals till I'm 100.
Not me. I'm retiring.
What happened to Bad Boys for Life?
It's time we be good men.
It's Bad Boys for Life. Who the fuck wants to sing that song?
Mike, I'm putting you on a new team. You're working with Ammo now.
Cap, Ammo is a high school musical boy band with guns.
You look great, Grandpa.
So you're that guy.
There's always one.
Right up till there's not.
That's what I like, teamwork.
I'm the definition of half man, half drugs. That's the drugs. Bad boy, that's what's up.
Marcus, somebody's trying to kill me.
Who wants to kill you?
I don't trust a person that don't want to kill him. Hell, put my name up there.
Thanks a lot. We got it, Marcus. We appreciate it.
But family is the only thing that matters. So I'm not letting you go on a suicide mission alone.
One last time. One last time.
It's official. I survived what I've been through. Y'all got drama, the saga continues. Hey, nowhere, we ain't.
Oh, shit! Get in! There's a pink ball! Let's go! Come on, let's go! Come on. Yes! No! Where the hell are you getting all these helicopters? Mike! Oh, this is my wife's car.
Cover the front door.
She knows. She always knows.
So as you can see from the, or as you can hear, unless you saw it as well, as you can hear from the trailer, Mike is now the target, Mike being of course Will Smith, is now the target of an assassination, and we didn't really know that. For the longest time, we didn't know what this movie was about. Even the last trailer that came out didn't really give us too much. It just was a lot of action shots. It was a lot more of the buddy-buddiness that we've come to love of these characters between Will Smith's Mike Lowry and Martin Lawrence's Marcus Burnett. So it's interesting. And now we have this, we have this new team with Vanessa Hudgens and Alexander Ludwig and Charles Melton, who are these, the younger people, the new hip young team that's coming in. That's that now has that Will. I almost said Will Smith. I mean, it is technically Will Smith, but that Mike has to work with to find out what the hell's going on. So I was already looking forward to this from the first trailer. This trailer really ups up the comedy and the sense of humor and the tone of what this movie's going to be about. It is a Bad Boys movie. It's this of anything. This is the trailer that's really like, we don't need Michael Bay to remind people that this was once a Michael Bay movie. We can out-Bay Michael Bay. That was very present from the helicopter shot at the end of the trailer. So I'm really looking forward to this. I don't know what else to say. I really love the trailer. It's like I mentioned with the last trailer that came out, it's awesome seeing Will Smith and Martin Lawrence back together for these characters. Because if anything, that's the reason why we're going to go watch this movie, because we know that them two together on the big screen is just going to be hilarious. And I do like the kind of callbacks. There is that High School Musical reference that Mike gives when he's talking about the team. And of course, Vanessa Hudgens was in High School Musical. There may have been some Deadshot references in there from Suicide Squad too, so it looks like maybe this is going to be a little self-reflective a little bit, but I'm all for it, man. I like the Bad Boys movie. I like the first one. Part 2 had its moments, but I'm really looking forward to this one. So Bad Boys for Life opens on January 17th, 2020. And now we're going to talk about the last trailer of the week, and that is based off the classic H.G. Wells story and directed by Leigh Whannell, who directed Upgrade last year. And that is of a new modern retelling of the classic story, The Invisible Man.
As the attorney representing Adrian's trust, I'm required to read a prepared statement. Cecilia, although our relationship was far from perfect, I thought that you would talk to me rather than run away.
Are you okay? What happened to him?
He cut his wrist. Per his final wishes, you're getting $5 million. Contingent, of course, on the fine print.
He can't be ruled to be mentally incompetent.
It just doesn't make any sense.
What?
Adrian wouldn't kill himself.
Listen, you're getting your freedom back, okay? Don't let him haunt you.
Hello? I'm scared.
You don't have to be scared of him anymore.
He was a sociopath, completely in control of everything. He said that wherever I went, he would find me, walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him.
Are you okay?
Someone's sitting in that chair. I found something that can prove what I'm experiencing. You need help. Adrian is dead. I went to his house today. He's not dead.
I have a pile of ashes in a box that would disagree with you.
He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Only thing more brilliant than inventing something that makes you invisible is coming up with the perfect way to torture you, even in death. Adrian's true genius was how he got in people's heads.
Don't come any closer. Hey!
I'm not crazy. Please listen to me.
You're saying the person trying to kill you is in the room right now, but we can't see him?
He's listening. Where are you? Where are you? Show yourself! Come on! Do it! There you are.
The film centers on Cecilia, played by Elizabeth Moss, a woman trapped in a violent, controlling relationship with a wealthy and brilliant scientist, played by Oliver Jackson Cohen from Netflix's The Haunting of Hill House. She escapes in the dead of night, but later finds out that he has committed suicide. However, after a series of eerie coincidences that turn lethal, as you can tell, that was pretty hard to say, she starts to suspect she's been haunted by someone she can't see. This is pretty cool. I really kind of dug the trailer. I think really you have to really buy into the concept of the Invisible Man, especially the way that Leigh Whannell is telling this, because on top of it being this kind of sci-fi story, you're also telling the story of an abusive relationship and getting out of an abusive relationship and what happens when that person that's abusing you is come back. And it's really trying to be more of a horror story, you know, just with the sci-fi twist that, you know, you have an abusive ex-boyfriend or ex-husband who has to turn himself invisible just so he can be around you and mess with you even more. It's kind of crazy when you think about it that way. But I really like the trailer. I like this new kind of take they're doing on it. It's not the you know, they could have gone a bunch of different directions with it, but instead they went this route, and I think it's going to be interesting with that round. I think it's going to show more of Elizabeth Moss's acting range. You know, obviously if you watch The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, which I haven't, but I hear good things. I know, stop yelling at me. But I know she's a great actress from everything else she's done, so this is really going to be her show. And again, it's gonna look a little weird when we're watching a movie and there's going to be a lot of blank space. So I think that's just going to wrench up the tension even more. But I'm really into this, and I kind of somewhat kind of wish they kind of I'm not tone it down is not the right word, but kind of given a little less in the trailer. It looks like at one point we see Moss is in a institution, and maybe he had followed her this whole time and found her, and he's kind of going rampant. And then there's that little brief shot of the trailer where he gets, I don't know if it's like he gets infected, I don't know if like it was like a smoke screen or something, so you see the outline of him and she finds him. I mean, obviously it's gonna happen. I mean, we knew that was gonna happen in the movie, but seeing it in the trailer is a little different. But I don't know. I'm not, going to be nitpicky and be like, just because of that, I'm not going to go watch the movie. No, I'm going to go watch the movie because this looks really, really good. So I'm looking forward to this. The Invisible Man comes out next year in February. It co-stars Aldous Hodge, Harriet Dyer, and Storm Reed. Pretty sure amongst many others, but I think those are the main players of the movie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So I'm really glad for it. So those are all your movie trailers. We have a couple other movie trailers that came out this week. All those trailers will be linked down below in the description/show notes area if you want to go check them out, or if you already watched them, you can go watch them again if you want. So there you go. Those are your trailers. Let's move on to this week's movie news items. So we're going to start off with some quick-fire movie news items first. The first quick-fire movie news item is that Ben Affleck has joined the crazy-sounding action thriller Hypnotic, which will be directed by Robert Rodriguez. In the movie, a detective becomes entangled in a mystery involving his missing daughter and a secret government program while investigating a string of impossible high-end heists. What do all those have to do with each other? Who the hell knows, but it's called Hypnotic probably for a reason. Rodriguez co-wrote the script with Max Bornstein, who lastly wrote Kong Skull Island. There's no wording on when the film will go into production, but this sounds pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds intriguing. I don't know how that all comes together, but I'm probably more intrigued in how all that comes together more than the movie itself. The next quick-fire movie news item is that a Dune sequel is already being written. Looks like Warner Bros. And Legendary already see a hit on their hands with the reboot of Dune that is being directed by Denis Villeneuve, who of course directed the first Sicario, Arrival, and last year's Blade Runner 2049. The sequel would now be written, or maybe even co-written. Denis Villeneuve wrote the first script. It will be written by John Speths, who was originally going to write and be the showrunner for HBO Max's Dune spin-off, Dune Sisterhood. So why the move? Well, apparently Spates and Legendary, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but let's just keep going with that. Legendary TV didn't see eye to eye on the project after he turned in his first draft and an outline for the show. The series would have followed a group of female characters in the world of Dune, and now a search is set for a new showrunner. While Space is now off to write the officially unannounced and unscheduled Dune 2. They have not officially announced a Dune 2, but obviously they have a lot of faith in this movie, so he's going to go write the script just in case they're ready to go, and I guess they want to, crank that out as soon as possible after the first movie comes out. Now, Spates did work with Villeneuve to write the first movie, so it's not a weird move, it's not an out-of-place move. It makes a lot of sense. And as for the first Dune, in case none of you guys know, it is a remake. But it will be led by Timothée Chalamet, who plays Paul, the son of a noble family who is entrusted to protect and defend one of the most vital elements in the universe, which can only be found on his planet. The film has a very impressive cast. Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, and Oscar Isaac, just to name a few. Dune will open next year in December, so there's going to be a lot of talk about that. Definitely, and I'm sure once I don't know if they've already finished filming. I believe they have, so I think they're already in post. But considering Villeneuve is one of the top sought out after directors, if they're gonna make a Dune 2, they better set him into a contract very, very soon. All right, so the next quick-fire movie news item we're going to talk about is a new Scream movie is in the works. According to Blade Disgusting, who I wholeheartedly trust when it comes to horror movie news, Spyglass Media Group has picked up the rights to develop another Scream movie. The movie is in the very early stages of development with no writer attached, or at least announced just yet. Original writer Kevin Williamson is not attached, at least at this point, and there's no word yet on if the movie will be a full-blown reboot or it will be a continuation of the Wes Craven-directed movies. Of course, the Scream series has had 4 films, which a lot of people really love. I know a lot of people love the first one. Part 2 kind of gets a little in there, and then Part 3 is, I think it picks up again with a lot of people liking the third one. A TV series was also made. It was different from the continuity of the movies, so it was its own thing. That ran for 3 seasons. I think 2 of them were on MTV, and the last one was on VH1. The films, like I mentioned, had a big following, and of course they were known for being a critique on the slasher genre. So there's this big thing where there's the slasher genre before and there's the slasher genre after Scream. Because after Scream came out, there was a lot of horror movies that wanted to be the new Scream, and a lot of that refers to Kevin Williamson, who wrote those movies, and of course the late Wes Craven directed all the Scream movies. So we owe him a very great debt also to bring in this character to the big screen. So Spyglass Media is also remaking the Hellraiser movie with David S. Goyer writing it. So they're gonna have a nice little caveat of horror films to work on, because Spyglass Media is, I think they're part of another group, another big company who picked up all of the film rights from Dimension Films, because Dimension Films was of course part of the Weinstein Company, and then once the Weinstein Company was no more, all their movies that they had were up for grabs, and I think Spyglass Media had picked up Dimension Films, which again was responsible for the Scream movies and responsible for the Hellraiser films as well. Alright, as for Scream, I mean, like I mentioned, everyone loves the first one. I just saw the first one again for the first time in a while because, of the Halloween season. I was watching a bunch of horror movies and I saw Scream and I just really loved it. And then part 2 came out and just like, this isn't as good. And then, part 3 came out and it picked up a little bit after, with 3. And then I remember watching 4 in theaters and not really being a fan of it. Maybe I have to go back and watch. There was parts of Scream 4 that I really liked, but the whole thing was just a little... Let's move on to the big movie news items of the week. The first one we're going to talk about is Andy Serkis and Colin Farrell are in talks to join the Batman. So the Batman is looking up to pick up its cast in a big way. So Andy Serkis is in talks to play Alfred Pennyworth, of course, Bruce Wayne / Batman's loyal butler, sometimes father figure, depending on how they're going to play him. And Colin Farrell is in talks to play the Penguin, which is it's a very interesting choice. If Serkis and Farrell do officially join, they of course will join Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle / Catwoman, Paul Dano as the Riddler, and Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. So that's a pretty big cast, and there's still some probably other big cast members that have yet to be cast. There's rumors that Two-Face will probably show up in the movie, so there's that to look forward to. This is pretty cool. Of course, Matt Reeves, who's directing the movie, has worked with Andy Serkis. They did the last 2 Planet of the Apes movies together, so they have a great connection there. Just the cast alone, this movie looks like it's going to be really good. So Yeah, so the Batman will be released on June 25th, 2021. They start filming, I don't know if they start filming later this year or next year, but they're going to start filming soon. And I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I mean, look, just look at that cast. Come on. Okay. So let's move on from one Warner Brothers picture to another Warner Brothers picture. After a several months delay, Warner Brothers has announced that the filming for the third Fantastic Beasts movie will start production next year and will try to reinvigorate the franchise. Production was expected to start earlier this year but was pushed back after Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald fell just short of expectations, but still managed to wrangle $650 million worldwide. I don't know what they were expecting, because if I ever directed a movie and it made $650 million worldwide, I'd be pretty happy. The quote-unquote hit led to some speculation that Warner Brothers could potentially revamp the franchise. That seems to be the case a little bit, since the intention for the franchise was to be a 5-film franchise, so we'll have to see if that still works out and if that's the case. Variety did report that Jude Law's Elvis Dumbledore, or to some sexy Dumbledore line out there, will return and be more of a lead role for Fantastic Beasts 3 and will set more of the action at Hogwarts. It will also be set in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So I don't know how those two are gonna cumulate, but we'll see how that works out. Pretty sure I used that word wrong. They also report that I'm just gonna move on. They also report that Warner Brothers executives are high on the script they've seen, believing it represents a big step forward in quality. The script itself is once again written by Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, who wrote the first 2 Fantastic Beasts movies herself, and screenwriter, so it's going to be co-written this time, screenwriter Stephen Kloves, who wrote all the Harry Potter movies except for Order of the Phoenix. I've meant to look up why that was the case. I don't know why he did not write that movie. I'm sure he had a perfectly good reason for that. But David Yates, who directed the last 4 Harry Potter films and the last 2 Fantastic Beasts movies, will return to direct. The cast of Eddie Redmayne, Catherine Waterstone, Alison Sodell, Dan Fogel, and Ezra Miller are also all expected to return as well. Fantastic Beasts 3 is aiming to be released in November of 2021. I wasn't the biggest fan of the first one. I thought it was okay for the most part, but I wasn't, a wholehearted fan. I still have not seen the second one. I do intend on watching that at some point, but I don't know. I know there's a big fan base for this. I know somewhat of the reaction for Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald wasn't as great as the first one. But with everything that was going on with it, especially the whole Johnny Depp thing at the time, with him and his now ex-wife, Amber Heard, it was just this big kind of mess of what was going to happen. There was reports that maybe they're going to recast Johnny Depp or what have you, but we'll see kind of what happens with this. Again, Fantastic Beasts 3 is aiming again to be released in November of 2021. So if that's the case, they're going to start filming pretty soon. So we'll see how all that transpires. Again, I can't really speak too much because I hadn't seen the last one. But I know there's a lot of Fantastic Beasts fans out there. I know there's a lot of Harry Potter fans out there. So I'm pretty sure you're happy about this. All right, so let's move on to our last movie news item of the week. And it is a movie news item that is not sitting well with pretty much anybody. It is not sitting well with nobody. So James Dean, who died, passed away in 1955 at the age of 24, will be, quote, digitally resurrected via full body CG, using actual footage and photos of the actor, allowing him to play a role in the film Finding Jack. Now, before you start yelling, what are they doing? Let me just get through the movie news item first. The move comes from directors Anton Ernst, and I'm going to mispronounce this person's name, Tati Golki. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. But they obtained the rights to use Dean's image from his family, and they will also produce through their production house Magic City Films, while Imagine Engine will work alongside a South African VX company to bring Dean to life, for the lack of a better word. The film itself is based on a novel of the same name and revolves around an abandonment of more than 10,000 military dogs at the end of the Vietnam War. Dean will play, quote unquote, what is described as a secondary role in the film, but that's not the fucking point, and I really try not to swear, but it's not the point of what this is. Now, I had to control myself. Granted, this is not the first time that this has been done. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, did this with Peter Cushing to bring him back as Grand Moff Tarkin. So there was that, but he, wasn't in the movie that much. I'm sure there was another time that it happened, but that's probably the major one that popped into a lot of people's heads. And for those wondering at all, Cushing passed away in 1994 and was 81. Not that it makes it any better, but there is that. And yes, we use body doubles all the time. The MCU is known heavily for using body doubles when, because of their long shoots and they had to do reshoots and stuff. Sometimes they can't have everyone there at the same time. Famously, they had a body double for Benedict Cumberbatch in, I believe it was Infinity War, and I think parts of Endgame as well. And they've, they use him for the big final action scene in Avengers Endgame. Not all those actors were on set at the same time. So they've used body doubles for that all the time. David Fincher pushed the limits of digital characters, and that was kind of the first time that we really were like, okay, we can do this. We can do this effectively. Not that we can, there have been times where people have done it, but we can do this effectively with The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And recently we had Gemini Man with 2 Will Smiths, which the technology was pretty good. But again, Will Smith did a lot of the motion capture, face-wise, the facial capture anyway. They used a body double for reference in that movie. And we've brought actors back from using this. I don't want to say back from the dead because that seems very disrespectful, but we've had, there's commercials every now and then that they bring back Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, and I think one of them used Burt Reynolds a couple years ago. So there is that. Still, this is not okay. James Dean has been dead for a long time, and he has become an icon, mostly because he died so young. And he gave us 3 performances in Giant, East of Eden, and Rebel Without a Cause. Rebel Without a Cause being probably the biggest one. When you think of James Dean, you think of Rebel Without a Cause. And he is, because of that, because of his early passing, he has become one of the biggest what-ifs in Hollywood. What if he had not passed away so young? What would, his career look like? What would the landscape of Hollywood look like? Would he, what kind of movies would he have been doing? It's again, it's one of the biggest what ifs, but to bring him back, and they're not even using him they're not even doing what they did with Peter Cushing, because they also used a body double for that. They just put his face on some other actor. No, they're gonna bring James Dean back from the sounds of it, from the looks of it, as a full body CGI character. So they're not even using a body double. They're using everything. They're from head to toe. It's not just gonna be his face. It's gonna be him entirely. And if you don't see the problem with that, one, what are you doing? What are you on? And 2, why? Why not just bring someone else in? Bring someone that kind of looks like James Dean, or that maybe has, no one has the same mannerisms as James Dean. And that's the other thing. And that's one of the things that I saw online with a bunch of people, and they bring up a great point. You can bring back, if you want, for some ungodly reason, bring back an actor who has been dead for so long, and have him there, but you're not going to capture the same mannerisms that he has, or that he can bring out if he was there for real, because he's not actually there. You can bring that from the other movies, but that worked in the other movies because that was for the character. This is a completely new character. We have no idea what's going to happen. So it's really dumb that they want to do this. And then you have, so I'm jumping around, so you have that. You have the argument, you have the rational and reasonable argument of why are you doing this? And of course, all the memes ran crazy with the Jeff Goldblum scene from Jurassic Park. You know, you never thought, you never stopped and asked if you should. But then you have the other people. You have the other side of film Twitter and people who are in the industry or close enough to the industry to say, does this really surprise you? Because this is kind of the way that maybe it's going to happen. This is the way that it's going to be in the future. We're going to see a bunch of actors who we all loved and care about somewhere down the line come back in a small role or in a full-blown role, for something like this. And there's going to be people out there be like, yeah, who cares? Yeah, bring them all back. No, why? Why would you want that? I don't want that. Because I know that is not a real character. That's not even a real person. You're bringing someone back from the dead using CGI that is someone. I don't care if they got permission from the family. I don't know. This irks me. It irks me in a way that I can't explain properly, but I've seen other people explain properly, and it just, I don't know. It just bothers me to I never want to be that person. I always want to be the person that is in the middle, that sees both. You guys know this by now. I'm always the person that wants to be in the middle of seeing the conversation, seeing both sides of the argument, seeing the side for, seeing the side against. But for the life of me, I cannot be in the middle of this issue. I don't want to see actors who have passed away come back in a full CGI, as a full CGI character, because that's not what I want to see. If I want to see CGI characters, guess what? I'll go watch a CGI movie. I'll go watch an animated movie. I don't want to watch that. So, I don't know. And then, the company that represents, I didn't write this down in my news story, but there was a company that's attached that represents a lot of actors who have passed away, and it scared me that they were listing them off, because I just know somewhere deep down that someone's gonna be like, oh, this is a good idea, let's start doing this with so and so. I don't want that. I really don't. It's just let the man rest in peace. Why would you do this? Just why? Why is the quote for this podcast this week? Okay, let's move on before I grow angrier. Let's move on to this week. That's all the movie news items, guys. We're ending this on a angry note, which should not surprise you if you've been listening to this podcast enough. So let's move on to this week's movie releases.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So we got one big limited release coming out, and I'm pretty sure this will be getting an expansion in the weeks to come. Written and starring Shia LaBeouf. It is a semi-autobiographical, or I can't speak now. Autobiography of his life. A child actor works to mend the relationship with his hard-drinking, law-breaking father. Honey Boy stars, like I mentioned. LaBeouf starring as his father in the movie. Noah Jupe, Lucas Hedges, amongst many others as well. This movie's been getting some pretty good buzz from the film festival circuit. Everyone's saying it's pretty good. A lot of people are kind of praising LaBeouf for, putting everything aside, putting his ego aside and having a movie being told about him in the most honest way possible. So that's really cool of him to do. So Honey Boy, that's your limited release of the week. Your wide releases this week, we have quite a few, all very different. So we have a lot of counter programming for you guys out there. The first one is Playing with Fire. A crew of rugged firefighters meet their match while attempting to rescue 3 rambunctious kids. Playing with Fire stars
John C.
John Leguizamo, Keegan-Michael Key, Tyler Mane, Brianna Hildebrand, and Judy Greer. I didn't think this movie was real. When I saw the trailer, I thought it was a fake trailer, but I was wrong. I don't know, man. I want to know whose family they held hostage to get all these people in this movie. I'm sure it would be a nice family movie for everyone, but I don't know, man. There's something about it just looks weird. I don't know what it is. It just looks weird. All right. So the next movie is Last Christmas, directed by Paul Feig and co-written by Emma Thompson, who also stars in the movie. Kate, played by Emilia Clarke, is a young woman described to bad decisions. Her last date with disaster, that of having accepted, I can't read the synopsis for some reason, to work as Santa's elf for a department store. However, she meets Tom, played by Henry Golding, and her life takes a new turn. For Kate, it seems too good to be true. So that is the weird synopsis that I have for some reason. I don't know why is that poorly written. I don't know. It's too late now. I read it. I'm not going back. So the movie co-stars, like I mentioned, Emma Thompson. It looks like Emma Thompson is playing Emilia Clarke's mother in the movie. Michelle Yeoh is also in there as well. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm pretty sure when we talked about the trailer when it first came out, I mentioned that everyone probably figured out the somewhat twist in the movie, because it seems like there's going to be a twist in the movie, and everyone pretty much figured it out, and the trailer didn't really do a good job of hiding the twist either, so it should be interesting to kind of see how that plays out and is executed in the movie itself. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's you know what, this is a perfect date movie. I will explain it as that, and I have no one to take it to, so, but it looks pretty good. I mean, you know, Emilia Clarke's getting out there doing stuff post Game of Thrones. Henry Golding's out there, you know, the guy from, he's the main lead actor from Crazy Rich Asians. So, and you got Michelle Yeoh in there too. I mean, she's always great, and Emma Thompson as well. So, I mean, what can go wrong? I mean, if anything, you watch a bad date movie, so big deal. So there's that. So the next movie is Midway, directed by Roland Emmerich. Yes, that Roland Emmerich, the man who's constantly destroying the world. The story of the Battle of Midway, told by the leaders and the sailors who fought it. Midway stars a very big cast. You have Patrick Wilson, Luke Evans, Woody Harrelson, Aaron Eckhart, Keegan Johnson, Alexander Ludwig, Mandy Moore, Nick Jonas, Ed Sakarian, and Dennis Quaid in there. Not being very not being very well received from critics, but you know, it's Midway, it's Veterans Day, people are going to go watch it. People are going to go watch a war movie. Doesn't really matter if the war movie's good or not, they're going to go watch it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably don't know too much about the Battle of Midway. Maybe I actually had to refresh myself of the Battle of Midway, because I unfortunately did not remember too much about the Battle of Midway, so there is that. And I'm gonna end up watching it, so why not? And the final movie coming out this weekend, probably the actual big release coming out this weekend, is Dr. Sleep, based off the novel by Stephen King, years following the events of The Shining. A now adult Dan Torrance, played by Ian McGregor, meets a young girl with similar powers as his, and tries to protect her from a cult known as the True Knot, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. Directed by Mike Flanagan, who has directed very great horror films like Oculus and Hush, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Netflix's Gerard's Game, and the Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House. I can't speak now. Dr. Sleep will also star Rebecca Ferguson and a bunch of other newcomers and up-and-coming stars as well. I am very looking forward to this. This is something that I've been looking forward toward for a while, and it looks very good. The word of mouth is very good so far. If people are saying if you love The Shining, you will love Dr. Sleep. They're saying it's a great companion piece. It's not really built on nostalgia. It's just a great companion piece to The Shining, which is always good to hear, because when you have a sequel to a movie, especially a beloved movie like The Shining, and you have a sequel coming out years afterwards, everyone's just going to think, oh, it's just a nostalgia kind of piece. But no, everyone's saying that Dr. Sleep is a great companion piece and a great follow-up to The Shining, which is really, really great to hear, because it looks really good. And you got Mike Flanagan at the helm. I mean, come on. The guy is known for his great horror movies. If anything, you know you're going to get a good sense of some great tension-filled, probably some great editing in there as well. His editing in his movies is fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to it. So there you go. You got Dr. Sleep, you got Midway, you got Last Christmas, you got Playing with Fire as your wide releases. Your limited releases are Honey Boy, and the expansion releases on some other stuff. I think The Lighthouse is still getting some expansion releases, or maybe it's going to start winding down for you guys. I know Jojo Rabbit's probably the same way. If you want to hear my review for Jojo Rabbit, you can check out last week's podcast where I reviewed that. Non-spoiler, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's it, everybody. That's all I got for you. That's your movie releases. That's your movie news, trailers. That's it. That's the podcast for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I very, very much appreciate it. No matter where you're listening to it. If you're listening to this on YouTube, be sure to click that like button, subscribe, and let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're listening to this on Stitcher, hello. Thank you very much for listening over there. The podcast is still pretty new over there, so thank you for jumping on board with that. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, be sure to give me a rating and review. If you don't want to write down a review, that's fine. Just give me a rating. Helps out the podcast in the long run anyway. It's the same thing. So yeah, Podbean, we're also on Podbean, so if you want to go check that out as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Everything that you need to keep up with the podcast, to keep up with me, to keep up with everything movie news wise is down below in the description / show notes area. The Twitter accounts, I've been using the Twitter account more. I really have for the podcast. So that's the handles down there. My personal Twitter and my personal Instagram are down there. I usually do reviews on there. I'll do reviews on the Twitter podcast as well. But so yeah, if you want to just get to know me a little bit more, I'm down there as well. The WordPress account is down there where I do non-spoiler written reviews. I probably will do a non-spoiler written review for Dr. Sleep. I usually don't tend to review horror movies because it's kind of hard for me to review a horror movie, but I'll keep that in mind. I'll try for you guys. I will. What else is down there? The trailers that came out this week, and just anything else is down there. Just go check it out, click on it, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you have a fun, safe weekend. If you're in, the winter now, not the fall, because here in Chicago we kind of skipped a little bit over fall. So if you're in that cold weather, stay warm. If you're listening to this in warm weather, just know that we dislike you just a little bit. But stay warm, I guess. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Have a fun, safe weekend. If you're listening, whenever you're listening to this, just have a fun, safe day. Be good people, and as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!